Welcome in to another edition of the Jim Jackson Show. Of course, you can follow me on IG at Jim Jackson Show, but also YouTube. It's Rich Eisen at youtube.com or wherever you download your favorite podcast. Listen, it's been thank you for joining me once again, but it's been a crazy yesterday. What's today's date? Today is the 9th. So Tuesday, April 8th was one of the craziest days that I've seen in the NBA. I thought Luca's was crazy being traded from Dallas to the Lakers. But what happened in Denver yesterday was bananas, or on Tuesday, the 8th was bananas. Being that not only did you fire Mike Malone, who was the head coach who won your championship a couple years back, but the gentleman he was having a little friction with in the front office, the general manager, Calvin Booth, you fired him as well. And it's funny because the headlines piggyback. It was Coach Malone, Michael Malone gets fired, he gets fired. And then it's later on, after everybody's like in shock and all of that, the other headline comes out that says Calvin Booth has been fired as well. So a lot to kind of dig into and sift through. The NBA this year has been, with the starting back with the firing of Mike Brown, who had kind of changed the culture of the Sacramento Kings and finally broke that playoff curse, to what we saw with Luca and that trade and how everybody was just like blown away. And then Taylor Jenkins in Memphis during the season, on how that kind of went from, here's a coach that has galvanized this Memphis squad and to really take the next step, to boom, change. And then this whole Denver thing just happened. I don't even know what you call it. It's in the shockwaves, and I don't know if that's an indictment. And I'm going to talk to my guest, Amin Elhassan, when he tunes in to dig into this a little bit more, kind of not just we know it happened, but why it happened. Dig into the mindset a little bit of these owners who are now a lot different because they come from money. Their valuations of the teams are so much more. Their decision making is based on different factors, opposed to how it was in the past when David Stern had this stern grip and so to say, on ownership in the league. It's so different now how these decisions are being made. So we'll dig into that in this show, talk a little bit more about the Western Conference playoff race, which is so tight right now, especially, and how this move affects Denver and everybody else, trickle-down effect in the Western Conference that's placing themselves in a position to be in the top 8 or to early on not to be in the play-in games. And also the question is, can OKC break through that ceiling and kind of get it done this year from a championship, or are they still too young and inexperienced for some of the other teams that are knocking on the door? And is it just in the Eastern Conference, is it just Cleveland and Boston and everybody else? And if so, can Cleveland leapfrog Boston if it gets to that point in the Eastern Conference Championship to get themselves to compete for a world title or NBA championship? So stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a great one. A lot of insight coming your way. As promised, a good friend of the show, Amin Elhassan, former NBA exec with the Hawks, with the Knicks, and also recently, a few years ago, with the Phoenix Suns, formerly a ESPN contributor. You've seen him on the Dan Le Batard show, but also you have the All Oddball show with Izzy Gutierrez. But what I wanted to get into, first of all, how you doing, brother?
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm doing well. To all those who don't know, Jim was one of my first OGs ever in basketball. It was you and Rick Mahorn back in Atlanta.
Oh, man.
So as soon as the call came in, I said, I got to do the show.
Yeah, man. It's been a crazy, I'm not even going to say day. a year in basketball.
Oh,
it's been bananas. starting, of course, back with Mike Brown firing and then kind of trickling down to, what we saw the other day with Denver. So I want to kind of dig into and dive into just getting your thought process from being in the front office, being around the NBA. Have you seen anything like this? Because Mike Brown, winning coach, gone. Taylor
Yeah.
Jenkins, winning coach, gone. These are during the season. And now 3 games left, I think, for Denver when it happened, when you had not only Michael Malone being fired, but the general manager and Calvin
Yeah.
Booth being fired. I know this is a rhetorical question, but have we seen anything like this before?
No, especially the last one seems to be the one that takes the cake because Michael Malone is someone who is the winningest coach in this organization's history, brought them to a championship, took a Nikola Jokic, who was a second round pick, who they had, decent hopes for, not 3-time MVP hopes for. And
Mm-hmm.
and he developed him into the player that he is today, the dominant player he is today. Michael Malone, who has a reputation of being a guy who's about the bottom line and, coaching towards that. And then when you say 3 games left in the season, to me, it's unfair to Michael Malone. I think we could all accept that. But you
Mm-hmm.
know who else it's unfair to? It's unfair to David Adelman, who has to take over with 3 games to go, has
Right.
to, establish his voice as not an assistant, but as the head coach there, has to motivate these guys who, for whatever reason, the motivations have strayed. It's an incredible amount of pressure on a guy with no time to tinker, no time to mess up. It's not like he's been a head coach before, so there's going to be growing pains in all of this. And for them to do this and disguise it as, oh yeah, this gives us a best shot to win a championship right now, that's what makes this one the most outrageous, I think, of the 3 firings.
Okay, so I didn't even mention the whole Luca thing. With regards to being from the mindset of ownership, and this is where I want
Yeah,
to dig into with you because you've been at 3 different places and understand 3 different mindsets.
yeah,
How do you come to a decision like this? As first of all, to fire the coach, but then to move a key player because they're 2 distinct kind of thought
right.
processes. In particular, firing a coach during the year when the team has shown success in the past.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with the coach because that one's more recent.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in a situation, this is a very unique situation. They fired the coach and the GM at the same time. And it's not like these 2 guys were aligned, right? So usually when you see GM and coach are both fired, they're buddies or whatever. Or they're basically both part of the issue, so to speak. In this case, we got 2 guys who, from all the reporting, it was kind of, a little bit of
Right.
a tension. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
friction between the 2. Calvin Booth, the GM, wanted Coach Malone to play more of the young guys. Coach Malone said, no, give me vets. Vets are what help us win games and win championships. And so that tension had been lasting a while. So typically, if we're going to fire a coach, regardless of what part of the season, typically the GM is in on that decision, right? In this case, ownership has come down and said everybody's out. Well, not everybody, because the assistant coaches are still there.
Right. Right.
So it makes it really unorthodox because in essence, if David Adelman ends up being not just the interim, let's say David Adelman goes on and he goes on an incredible run and does win the championship. Then he's your head coach, right? So that means you got to hire a general manager who didn't pick the head coach. He's like, hey, I just got to go on and get along. And to me, that kind of perverts the order of operation. You're supposed to do things in a certain way when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to clean house. We talk about Luca trading a franchise player. Now, that one's different. That one is definitely a case where you have to have a conversation. First of all, whose idea was it? I'm still not totally sold,
Right.
right?
Who do you think? Who do you think? Gut feeling.
I
Gut. From
my
being
gut feeling
around it, gut feeling.
my gut feeling is it's ownership. My gut feeling is because that's the number one job of being a GM, Jimmy. It's not to scout players, it's not to negotiate contracts, it's not to do trades. Your number one job is to make that person up there happy. They happy, I'm happy. Like
Mm-hmm.
happy wife, happy life,
Right.
happy ownership, happy life for
Happy.
a
Right.
general
Right.
manager.
Uh-huh.
So if my owner comes to me and he says, "We got man, this dude is out of shape or whatever," I'm gonna try to talk him out of this. Like, no, you don't understand. This kid is really special, and just give him time to mature, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're gonna have to listen. It's their team. You gotta have to listen, and you're gonna have to take the bullets. You can't go up there in front of the cameras and be like, "Yeah, I wanted to keep him, but you can't do that. You have to
Uh,
protect ownership. That's the job, right?" And so I just based on the justifications, and I talked to a lot of people, both
mhm.
around the Dallas Mavericks and around the league. The justifications just don't add up, right? Because if you're worried about the long-term health of this guy, that's why you're doing it. You can't go get someone who has one of the most decorated long-term health issues in the league. Like if that's what I'm getting, if my thing is, hey, my Toyota Corolla, it's too small. It's too small. My family's growing. I can't fit all my family into this Corolla. I need a new car. I can't go and get like a Honda Civic. I basically just said the same thing, right? I got to get a minivan. I got to get SUV, whatever. And so they did the same thing here. They moved off of a player who, by all rights, is headed to the Hall of Fame,
Mhm.
right? Early in his career. He's 5 years, 6 years in, and we already like, yeah, he'll be there, right? And for a guy who, again, this isn't about Anthony Davis, the player. The talent is undeniable, but the health issues, the durability issues
Mhm.
are there. Now you could do that. You could make that deal for an older player who has health issues as well. But then you got to tell me I'm getting one, two, three, four first round picks, three swaps, something like that. When you see what Rudy Gobert went for, when you see what Drew Holiday went for when he got traded to Milwaukee, when you see what Mikal Bridges went for to New York, it's hard to sit here and say, well, we got one first round pick for Luca.
Yeah, it's true. And if to your point about the health issues, if they're concerned about that, there are covenants you can place into his contract that
Mm-hmm.
adhere and address that situation regarding full pay if he's not healthy, if he's not. It's kind of like what they did with Zion. Now, whether he
Mm-hmm.
signs off on it or not, we don't know. But you could put that out there um, in their contract negotiations. But what I'm looking at, because what they did with Adrian Griffin, kind of, he was above 500. They were one of the top teams in the East. Is
Right.
there now an indictment, and not in a bad way, but in a different way, of ownership kind of peeling back some of the control? How much did the CBA play into this? I don't know. It just seems like ownership
Yeah.
right now is bolder in these situations, especially with the moves they've made during the season with these particular coaches.
That's certainly the case. So what we have also, we got to acknowledge that ownership has changed across the league a lot in the last 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
I think most of these owners at this point weren't even around for David Stern, right? Which was a very different regime as far as how you are supposed to, operate. And what I say by that, what I mean by that is technically the commissioner works for the owners. He's appointed by the owners to look out for their best interests. David Stern approached that job like, nah, y'all work for me,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And so there was not a whole lot of tolerance for things that went out of the ordinary. Because if it did, you would get a call from that 212-465 number,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would hear about it. If they didn't make you get on a plane and fly in and hear about it in person. So some of like when you operate under that, and now you grow up, if you're an owner, you're growing up under a regime where it seems like they're a lot gentler and kinder, but also
Mm-hmm.
more willing to allow things to happen. You really don't have that kind of discipline, I think. And this is, make no mistake, it's about discipline, right? Mike Brown gets fired. This is an organization at the time have been in the playoffs one time
Mm-hmm.
in 15, 16 years, right? And that one time was Mike Brown. He fixed something that everyone said couldn't be fixed. He brought discipline, he brought structure. And as he's in season 3 of this, he's looking around and saying, y'all slipping. You acted like you made it, but you haven't made anything. And we have standards here. And Jimmy, you know this as well as I do. In every NBA organization, there's going to come a time where one or multiple players, they don't like the way coach did this or said that,
Yep.
and they go to
Mm-hmm.
someone else. That someone else might be an assistant coach, it might be someone in the front office, it might even be the owner. And they do like they do their little complaint. And it's at that moment, I call it the moment of truth. Because if your organization is about upholding standards and you know that guy who's doing the job is good at his job, like Mike Brown was, when that comes to you, you say, hey, man, that's coach. You got to listen to him. If you do the, well, and you try to listen to, you open the
Open the
door to the play.
door.
Oh,
Yep.
they don't even
Open
believe
the
in him.
door. They don't believe it. And you know what I found too, to your point about David Stern. David Stern, because he took the league from not generating the kind of revenues and the valuations of the team to this global product. And he had that level of control. A lot of these owners now are coming in from a multi-billion-dollar business. They've ran it. They got money. They're looking at it as an additive to what they've already done, and they've run the business. And I love Matt Ishbia. Matt Ishbia has a mindset of a CEO corporation. I'm going to go buy talent. He tried that in Phoenix. Okay, I'm going to buy talent. I know what I'm doing. I know how to organize. So with Adam Silver, because he had lighter hands on the steering wheel, so to speak, he allowed a lot of things to kind of happen player-wise and ownership-wise. I think we find ourselves in a situation where teams are not negotiating with the league and players anymore. They're looking at it like, hey, this is what I got to do. I don't know what the Gronke family whole mindset is, because they're multiple owners of professional sports teams, on what their books look like and what they're thinking. But what does this say about the league in general? Because we've had a lot of stuff. We don't see this in football. We don't see this in baseball. What does it say about the league in general?
I think you hit the nail on the head. The relationship between owners and the commissioner's office is very different when it went from, man, we were worth 10, $15 million. Now we're worth $200, $300 million versus, hey, man, I paid $3 billion for this thing. I could do whatever I want. That's a huge difference in relationship, right? So when you start with that I paid all this money for this, I get to play with my toy the way I want to, then you throw onto it, maybe it's a younger owner, that there's a little impatience in there. So the Kroenke family, Stan Kroenke, Big Stan is technically the head of Kroenke Sports, but because of the bylaws, he's not allowed to be the main owner of the Nuggets because he owns an NFL team. So his son, Josh Kroenke, is the one who's in charge. Josh is probably around my age. Went to Missouri, played at St. Thomas More in high school. So he's a younger guy. So he's more likely to have a kind of reactionary vibe about him than someone who's been around 40, 50 years older, maybe a little bit more measured and more mature in that way. But again, you look all across the league, all these guys making these moves are, whether it's Matt Ishbia in Phoenix, again, he came in, paid a lot of money. Vivek came from Tech, paid a lot of money for the Kings. In Memphis, Robert Pera came from Tech, made a lot of money. And the one thing about all these billionaires that I know is at some point in their lives, they were told, you can't do this, or that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And they made it work. And so in their mind, you can't tell me nothing, right? Like, because they told me I wouldn't be a billionaire. Look at me now. And so when you tell them, hey, that's not how you run a team. That's not how this works. They're like, wait a second. They told me that about mortgages, about tech, about whatever, right? So they're almost more emboldened to take these large swings and not listen to kind of advice or counsel on that.
Well, decisions like this, okay, so late in the season, Denver was third place at the time? When that happened, they catapulted up. They've been playing well. They dropped some games. How does this affect, in your mind, Denver moving forward, and how does it affect this tight playoff race with like 2 to 3 games left to go?
Yeah, well, that race is crazy because right now they're fourth, but they're tied with the Clippers and the Warriors and Memphis.
Right.
So they could be in the play-in. Like one loss, in the next game, and one win by someone else, and all of a sudden you're in the play-in, and that's very different from having home court advantage, obviously in the playoffs. So again, I got to stress this enough. They put David Adelman in a tough spot, man. You got zero room to learn. And yes, he's been an assistant coach for years, but Jimmy, there's a difference. There's a difference when you move from this chair to that chair. There's a difference. And the players know it too, because they could tell that first time, man, I'm not going to name names, but I got a buddy of mine, longtime NBA player, who was playing on a team, and their coach left in the middle of the season, and the assistant coach who had been interviewed for jobs, and he was a former player and long time, like this guy had the pedigree. He said he got that first game. They gave him the clipboard. That thing was looking like spaghetti, like this. They were like,
Yeah, it ain't gonna
no,
work.
sir,
It
it ain't
ain't
gonna
gonna work.
work.
He
And it's
lost
like
them right there.
he lost the
Yeah,
team in the
yeah.
first huddle of the first game. That's how cutthroat this business is. And so most of the time when you get a brand new head coach, it's a guy who's been building towards this, maybe coached elsewhere, maybe coached down in the G League. So I had some reps and stuff. Or they've had an off season. They did summer league, they did all that, and now
Hmm.
they're walking into camp and they've got some confidence about them. I hope for David Adelman, who's a great guy, and a great coach. I hope for his sake that he's successful. But I'm gonna be honest with you, man.
Uh-huh.
The circumstances just aren't great for someone to come in and be immediately successful. The only thing on their side is they have the best player in the world, and that can erase a lot of mistakes and a lot of issues.
Well, is it okay? So as we look at it, you talked about that. I mean, Joe Mazzulla is kind of like an outlier there, coming in from the back of the bench
Hmm.
and doing it. But okay, as we look at, and I want to transition as we look at this playoff race, the play-in scenario, everybody poo-pooed on it at the beginning. Oh, we don't need to do this. And I didn't think that if I'm in seventh and all year I've worked my butt off to be 5, 6, 7, 8 games removed from
Hmm.
eight, that I should have to go into a play-in scenario. That's what I felt. But I get the thought process, and it's working because it's forced teams to who's in sixth, who's in fifth, that's tight, to say we can't not play, continue to play. And
There you
like
go.
Washington, when they were in 10th, 12th, and they got up to
Hmm.
10th, they just didn't lay it down. So if you got a game against Washington tomorrow, but they're in 12th and they need those 2 games, you're going to get your best from Washington. So
Yep.
that scenario worked with me. Your crystal ball right now,
Hmm.
OKC is dominated all year, but yet you see what the Lakers are doing. The Clippers are a threat.
Hmm.
And Minnesota turned the corner. How much confidence do you have in the young OKC team who hasn't made it past the second round?
Yeah. I would say, first of all, I love the play in because like you said, it gives us all a reason to keep competing through April. Where in
Mm-hmm.
years past, if people remember, like you said, we're five, we're good where we
Yep.
are. Or even if you're like, if you were 10, you'd be like, well, I guess that's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I think of a team like Houston last year, where they were still in striking range of that play in. They kept fighting
They're
and
playing.
competing. And by the way, I said it at the time. This is going to help them next year because now they know what meaningful basketball is like. Now they know, like, man, we dropped that game. This is disastrous for us. Where in years past, they would have shut it down, played young guys, and called it a day. So shout out to the play-in. But to your question about the Thunder, I look at this team and I talk to people all across the league. I said, what's their weakness? There ain't no weaknesses. They've got it all. They got perimeter scoring. They defend at every position. Their bigs are talented and are playmakers and play inside and out. They're deep. They've got a bona fide MVP leading them, who's one of the toughest guys to guard in the league, and he also defends. He's not a one-way player. The only thing we can come up with is, man, y'all young, you haven't done it enough. But at some point, even that has to wear off. And so for me, I mean, I think the Thunder are the best team in the NBA. Now, what's working against them is what you mentioned. Every team in the West is great. There is no your 8 seed is probably going to be either Minnesota or Golden State or who one of these teams. Maybe Memphis. Like these are not easy teams. That's not a walk in the park the way it's supposed to be in the first round.
Yeah.
So they've got a tough road ahead of them as opposed to in the Eastern Conference. At least you can say
Boston and Cleveland.
Boston and Cleveland, and our first round matchup is going to be easy. It's going to be Atlanta or Orlando. It's going to be not quite as rigorous as what the
Mm-hmm.
guys in the West are going to see.
Well, let me ask you this. So the teams you mentioned, like for the Clippers, you got Kawhi, you have James Harden. For the
Mm-hmm.
Lakers, you got Luca, you have LeBron.
Yep.
For let's say Golden State, now you have Steph and you have Jimmy Butler.
Yep.
A proven one and proven two, a 1A, 1B.
Mm-hmm.
Have that with OKC because we know Shake can get it. But
Yep.
is Jalen the guy for a 7-game series that's that second guy when they try to
Yeah.
stay away. I think that's a question that people have with
Yeah.
having something there other than experience with
Yep.
OKC.
No. So that's the game plan is to get the ball out of Shea's hand early and let it get
Mhm.
away, and then we'll see how the offense operates. I'm biased. I live in the Phoenix area. Jalen Williams is from the Phoenix area, went to
Yeah,
Perry High School, and I've seen him. I've seen the ascension, and I think he's got it in him. Now, that might be an experience factor right there. Maybe not for the team as a whole, but that pressure point there, because as you said, it's different from when I'm on the wing and I'm getting action run towards me versus they force the ball out of Shea's hands. Now I got to bring it up. I got to initiate offense. I have to be an
hmm
aggressor. And part of that also is that feeling of I can make mistakes and keep going. Right? You know this, Jimmy. There's guys that they get in that situation, missing a couple of shots, now they don't want to shoot anymore. They feel, oh, man, I don't have it going. But when you're in that spot, you don't have that luxury anymore to be like, someone else take it. That's got to be you. Do you have that kind of that mentality in you, that aggression to say, I'll miss 6, 7 in a row, but I'll keep shooting because I'm going to make 3 or 4 in a row at some point, and those are going to be at crucial moments. I, I guess I can accept that. I think Jalen Williams does have that in him,
I
but I,
agree with
I
you.
understand. I understand why people are asking that question.
Yeah, I don't think he's his personality, the way he's played since he's come into the league, that he's one to shy away from the moment. But
Mhm.
shying away from the moment and making the right decisions in the moment are two different things. In
Yes.
particular,
Yeah.
when you have to man up the ship if your 1A is not doing it, how you
Mhm.
initiate plays, facilitate plays, what shot you take, when you take it, do you get guys the ball, do you get off of those little things in pressure situations
Yeah.
sometimes either cause you to do the right thing or make these little mistakes that cost you the game. And now we got to see that from Jalen this year. I think we'll see a little bit more with these other teams on how they try to manipulate that OKC offense and get the ball out of SGA's head.
Yeah.
So when I look at the West too, and of course I cover the Clippers, and I'm watching how the roster has been built because it's built around before it was built around PG,
Mhm.
Kawhi, and then James. Okay, then you had these bunch of complimentary players that did. Zoo just they pounded you inside and get you a tough
Mhm.
basket, rebounded. But it's something about this team with you have the right balance of the offensive side now that Norman Powell has kind of ascended in that as the legitimate, maybe sometimes second offensive player to third
Mhm.
behind James and Kawhi. But Zoo is a valuable asset down low that you can trust in that short roll, dump on the ball. He can make plays. But you have the Derrick Jones Jr., you have the Amir
Yep.
Coffey, you have the Chris Dunn of the world, Nicholas Batum, defensively that understand their role. They're ball movers. Where,
Right.
where does the Clippers land with you?
So the Clippers, first of all, I want to say I've been looking at the sportsbook odds on who's going to win Most Improved Player,
uh,
and it's blowing my mind. Look, no, Cade Cunningham is a great player, but you need to explain to me how he's most improved. He was a number 1 overall pick and never disappointed at any point in his career. Why is he most improved, the leader? Meanwhile, Zubac can't even get on the board. I'll be
right.
honest. I've seen Zubac since he was a Laker. I thought he was a good big, a serviceable big. What I've seen this year, he's a problem. This isn't just a release valve of like James is driving, defense collapse, he throws a lob. They throwing it to him on the block. He's got the
Mm-hmm.
right hook, he's got the left hook, and he's bodying guys. And it's not just nobodies. I watched that Cleveland game when the Cavs came into it, and I said, man, those are two of the best defensive bigs we have in the league, and he's treating them like they're just little rag dolls. So Zubac to me is it's insane that he's not one of the favorites to win Most Improved Player. I think the way the Clippers are built. So I said this in the offseason when the Sixers signed Paul George. I said the Sixers made a risky move even riskier. What I mean by that is you got Joel Embiid. He's your star. When he's
Mm-hmm.
healthy, he's great, but he's not always healthy. So normally you want to hedge your bets. You want to get something a little bit more reliable. They went out and got another unreliable guy. They almost did a parlay instead of hedging their bets. When you need both of these guys. And so they both were hurt, and the season ended the way it did. Meanwhile, the Clippers, you say, I got Kawhi Leonard. He's a guy that gets hurt. He's great when he plays, but he gets hurt. So I'm going to pair him not with PG anymore, but with Harden, who, for all of the criticism he gets, he's durable as hell. He plays games and he plays minutes, right? He's not no 32-minute kind of guy. He's out here playing heavy minutes and playing games, right? And so I know that Kawhi, when you're not healthy or you're not right, don't worry, we got it. Because James is, like he said, I'm a system, right? I don't fit systems. I am the system. And then Norm Powell takes a step up offensively. Zubac takes a step up offensively. Amir Coffey takes a step up offensively. And then the other guys, Chris Dunn and Nick Batum, like you said, they know their spots. Derrick Jones Jr. Now, the team was doing decently to start the year. Now as Kawhi's healthier and he's playing more. Now everyone's like, oh, wait a second. This isn't just the little engine that could.
Right.
They're a real life problem because they defend at a high level. They got a bona fide closer in Kawhi, and they've got a guy in James Harden who an innings eater, can just get you through them second and third quarters where someone's in foul trouble or someone's not playing well. Like, just give it to James and let him keep going and going, and he'll wear them out.
Yeah, they've done it. And then with Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy, it's funny because Ty and I both played for Jeff in Houston. But, this is what I tell people about Jeff and the squad and how they reacted to Jeff. A lot of the young guys don't know Jeff from coaching, just from TV. Yeah. But the respect that he's earned is phenomenal. I mean, it's incredible because when he talks about the defensive side of the ball and ball movement, you can see the eyes. They're looking intently. Yeah. So that means they're paying attention. So that move itself, I think, empowered both. And before we get out of here, I want to say this. Can Cleveland beat Boston?
I mean, that's kind of the same question about Oklahoma City that we're asking, right? Does Cleveland, on paper, they seem to check all the boxes. Acquiring DeAndre Hunter in the middle of the season was a massive move for them in terms of a guy who gives them more versatility both on both sides of the ball. But we're asking, man, y'all been knocked out in the first round and last year kind of second round. No, I don't believe anybody on the roster has made it past the second round. Maybe DeAndre Hunter with the Hawks, but their main guys are all been second round knockout type of guys. Can you walk into the champs building and beat them there and surpass? Can they? I think yes. Will they? Man, that's why we play the games, right? Like, because there comes a time where there is a confidence that teams that have been there have, and they can look in your eyes and see, oh, you don't know where you at now. You've never been here. We've been here a lot of times. I know for myself, 2010, I was with the Suns. We played the Lakers, who were the defending champs, in the conference finals. And we went down 2-0. We made some adjustments, and we tied it up at 2-2 in Game 5. We almost had them, and then Ron Artest grabs that air ball, lays it up. They win Game 5. We go back to Phoenix Game 6. They get out big on us. We come back, and then Kobe, God rest his soul, he slammed that door shut. But it's one of those things where you see it in the moment where, man, they have a confidence of knowing, oh, we've been here before. We're going to figure it out. Versus when you haven't been there before, you haven't been beyond that stage, there's a little bit of a, man, I don't know. This feels bad. This is bad news right here. And so I wonder if in a close game, Cleveland can make that push beyond Boston.
Is there a matchup that could favor Cleveland with that lineup with Boston? There one particular, if you get over the hump, I know it's tough because you got to cross Boston, but is there a matchup that's favorable for Cleveland?
I think up front, I think when you talk about Evan Mobley, he's the guy. He has to be the guy for them. Porzingis obviously is no walk.
But he's not a volume shooter. He's not a guy that just goes in. He doesn't go get it like that.
That's the next step.
That's the next step.
Okay. I told Kenny Atkinson at All-Star break, I said, you know who he reminds me of? He said, who? I said, Rasheed Wallace. Because Rasheed was smarter than everybody. He was skilled. I tell people all the time, Rasheed shoot left-handed three-pointers. I see Rasheed shoot right hand and left hand at the same time. Three-pointer and make them. It sounds crazy. I promise you. And it wasn't like a lucky shot. He does this, right? But Rasheed was a guy that wanted to play within the system. He wanted to be one
Mm-hmm.
of the guys. And that was the thing where it's like, if Rasheed ever accepted kind of like, I'm the dude, give me the ball, get out of my way, could have averaged 30 easy. He could have been
Easily.
right up there with KG and C Webb and Dirk and Tim Duncan in terms of
Yep.
that. But he was like Evan Mobley. I just want to be one of the guys. Now, what happened to Rasheed was when he got to the Pistons, that team was so deep, he could pick and choose
When he wanted to be the
sometimes
guy.
when
Yeah.
he wanted to be that guy. And that ultimately helped them. So to me, I look at Cleveland and I say, Donovan Mitchell's going to get his, and Darius Garland's going to get his. But if they're going to beat Boston, that's going to be a time where Evan Mobley needs to step up and say, guys, get on my back. I got y'all.
Yeah, man. I agree with you. It's going to be fun. I tell you what, Houston is locked in at number 2 with the Lakers lost
Mm-hmm.
last night. So we know that right now it's still fluctuating in the West, kind of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I tell you what, the playoffs this year, especially in the Western Conference, going to be something special to watch, especially the
Yeah.
first round. I'm looking forward to it. Love to circle back around as we get deeper in the playoffs, maybe the second round or maybe Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals before we get into
Yeah.
the championship round and kind of dig into that too. But congrats on everything you're doing, my man. You always add a lot of insight from a management perspective, but then also just from a logical perspective on what's going on.
Jim, I'm lucky. I got to work with so many great players over my career. Like I said, it started with you and Rick Mahorn in Atlanta. In New York, I worked with Isaiah Thomas. I worked with Trevor Ariza and Jamal Crawford. Went to Phoenix, Steve Nash, Shaquille O'Neal, Grant Hill. Work alongside Mark West, the late John Shoemate. I
Mm-hmm.
have people who have played everywhere from NBA in the 60s all the way to the 2020s. And so I thank all of y'all for everything I know because it's all from asking questions, from being around y'all, seeing how y'all react to things and how you think about the game. And I'm able to steal all of that and call some of it my own.
No, I appreciate it, brother. Enjoy it, man. It's gonna be a great ride, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks a
Okay.
lot.
All right. And I tell you what, there's some great information there. Thank Amin for joining me once again because the insight part of it. And as we close, I was closing the show, I was just thinking about kind of where we're at with the NBA, and it's kind of a tough situation right now because it seems like it's a little unstable with regards to the other sports, whether that's hockey, whether that's Major League Baseball or football, because of what has transpired this year with the coaching moves, the player moves. It doesn't seem like it's a strong grip hold on who actually has control in this league, whether it's the front office, management, ownership, players have too much control. The commissioner's office doesn't have enough control, and it's not a good place to be in. I think if you're the NBA because the product is really really good, but there are a lot of factors that are detracting away from the product that don't allow you to really enjoy fully the product. And I'm not saying any the other leagues I just mentioned don't have their issues, but it seems like the NBA is more compounded. It's always one thing, next thing, next thing that kind of I think takes the love that our fans have away from the game, the passion, because of all the extracurricular stuff. Again, trades and coaches being fired, disgruntled players, disgruntled owners, whatever. That's part of every sport. But how and when it happens has a direct impact on kind of the viewership, on the sentiment that our fans have right now. So it's going to be very interesting to see as we end this season and jump into the playoffs. We have a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of things that needs to be settled. That where we land on this and where we land on this moving forward with the ownership player dynamic, and on top of that is the commissioner's office because it's such a great product with some amazing young players that are playing this game. And I know there's a transition going on in the NBA with the thought process on the way owners are now reevaluating their ownership and how they're making moves within their franchises. So it's just one of those times, man, where it's a little pain that we're going through, but I think we'll figure it out. I think our fans deserve better, but understanding that within the business, too, in the business model, some things have to go through some rocky moments sometimes in order for the product itself to be better overall. So another great show, another great week. We got a couple games left in this NBA season, kind of filter out who's going to be playing who or who's in the playing game. So it's going to be fun. And like Amin and I both said, the introduction to the play-in games were met with a lot of force and negativity. But I think as we see it now playing out, it's added so much value to the intrigue to the end of the season that it's making people kind of tune in a little bit more. And also placing teams in a situation where they have to be accountable and they have to continue to play in order to get to the playoffs and ultimately try to achieve a goal, which is win the championship. All right. So enjoy this weekend. Enjoy the games this weekend. Enjoy the playoffs, playing games when it starts next week, and we'll be back. All right. Peace out.